and welcome to this video on the Life After Brady channel. Today we're going to go through who will have a new head coach in the NFL in 2023. A couple days to digest here so we get some more recent information than if we did this on Monday. So these are the 5 coaches, 5 teams that separated. The Denver Broncos fired Nathaniel Hackett. The Houston Texans parted ways with Lovie Smith. Carolina Panthers earlier this year fired Matt Rule. The Colts also earlier this year got rid of Frank Wright. And the last one, Cliff Kingsbury, was let go by the Arizona Cardinals. How did we get here? We'll kind of go through it. So the first team, Chicago, first-year head coach. Second, third, fourth, and fifth all fired their coach. The Rams won the Super Bowl last year. Josh McDaniels, first year with the Raiders. And then you kind of get into some questions there. Atlanta is in this group of 7 and 10 teams. Arthur Smith had a couple of years there, but no quarterback there. Is part of the reason, to me, why he hung onto his job. Carolina fired their coach first year in New Orleans with Sean Payton leaving. Mike Vrabel, I think you could see a battle there, especially you go to all the way to the right. You see they lost the last 7 games there. Potentially some questions there if he'd want to move on, but so much success recent years, you think he keeps his job. Cleveland, I think, is a job to watch next year. 7 and 10, obviously got Deshaun Watson back late, but if this continues next year, I think he's on the hot seat. And the Jets with Robert Saleh, second or third year, obviously the quarterback situation didn't work out, is how he still has a job. And this defense was obviously phenomenal this year. So let's go through team by team where they could end up. So first up, Nathaniel Hackett, first-time coach, offensive mind. A lot of this has been made about whether he was just there to try and get Aaron Rodgers there, which obviously did not happen. The offense obviously did not work out, and that's the biggest question. 32nd. Defense was very good, but 14th. In the Russell Wilson situation is the big one. You're guaranteed for another 2 years of him. It'd be more than $50 million to get rid of him after the 2024 season, so still that's a lot. So really, I think you probably 3 years of him, 23, 24, 25. Before that, there's a $31 million dead cap after the 25 season, so I think there's a chance he goes then. But whoever comes in is going to have to take on Russell Wilson. A lot's been made of that. Of you looking for another offensive mind, trying to get this 32nd ranked offense going. An offense that's been 32nd, 23rd, 28th, and 28th the last couple of years. Or do you need kind of a leader of men? Clearly, Hackett did not have control of the locker room. There's a lot of potential issues. Guys came with Wilson. Guys came to his rescue later on in the year, but there's definitely seems like a little bit of smoke there. So I think they could go one of 2 ways depending on who's available, whether it's Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, David Shaw, a couple other guys we'll get into in a second. No first-round pick, obviously, due to that Russell Wilson trade. Overall, 4th in the AFC West the last 3 years. They've never really bottomed out as part of their problem. Patrick Surtain was a late top 10 pick. Bradley Chubb, a couple years back, who's now obviously gone, but never really truly bottomed out to get that number 1 quarterback. That's why they went the Russell Wilson route, which if they can bounce back from that, they'll be all set. If not, you'd expect them to be 3rd or 4th in this AFC West for the foreseeable future behind the Chargers and Chiefs. Who they've gone through so far, as I said, kind of a leader of men, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, David Shaw, Jim Caldwell. And then they've looked at the DCs. They had an offensive mind. Can a guy like DeMeco Ryans from the 49ers come through, the Robert Saleh route a little bit and be a leader of men, as well as, really make that defense a top 5 defense and, don't worry so much about the offense. Just get that to be passable. Next up, the Houston Texans fired their 2nd head coach in as many seasons. They're now on their 4th coach in the last 3 years when you count Romeo Crennel as the interim 3 years ago. The offense and the defense, this team was rebuilding. 30th in offense, 27th in defense. Ever since Deshaun Watson sat out, departed after the 2020 season, just hasn't been pretty. Offense 30th the last 2 years, defense 27th. Big question is quarterback. What happens with the Bears? Bears pick first, they pick second. Is Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis the answer? That's going to define this franchise. And to me, it's similar to the Jags and Jets from a couple years ago. Jets won twice in December, and that's why they picked Zach Wilson instead of an opportunity to pick first and gets Trevor Lawrence. Could the same thing be the case with Houston, who beat Indianapolis in Week 18? I think that could But unfortunate for them if Chicago's able to trade that pick to someone else, or the Texans have to do what happened with San Francisco and the Bears a couple years ago. Of the Bears traded up to get Mr. Trubisky, and San Francisco got another pick to move down and dropped a defensive lineman third. Some cap space, obviously, a lot of room for improvement on this team. Not a lot of solid pieces. You got Larry Tunsil, left tackle, looking for a new deal. The running back Dameon Pierce looks good, but otherwise, we'll see. Will this be the third straight offseason of flirtation with Josh McCown? I think he might get more of a shot. And the other question to me is just, who's going to want this job? As I say that, there are only 32 jobs. Someone has to, they're a valuable commodity. People want them. But I would say this is on the lower end of the jobs right now with the uncertainty of this team and instability in the front office. Kind of a mismatch of guys that they've looked at interviewing so far. Sean Payton, the Eagles DC, Jonathan Gannon, the Eagles OC, the OC from the Lions, who did a nice job with Jared Goff this year, and a couple other guys. I don't think they fully know, Nick Caserio, what direction they want to go. They're just sampling the field at the moment and see who the best candidate is for them and who's willing to take the job. Carolina Panthers going to the AFC South. Finished the year with Steve Wilks, finished 6-6 to end the year, 7-10 overall. So a nice record by Wilks. Finished second in the division, a relatively weak division. 45-year-old Tom Brady, the Saints going the wrong direction, and the Falcons still haven't stabilized there. Matt Rule was supposed to be able to develop guys, just never got the offense going, in my opinion. They finished 20th this year. A lot of that had to do with Steve Wilks' second half of the year, just ground and pound team doing what they need to do, but they just never figured out the quarterback situation. Matt Corral, the third-round pick from last year, is the only one currently on the roster. You saw Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and P.J. Walker all take snaps. They're going to pick ninth. So to me, there's a chance you get to Will Levis, maybe. Maybe the Florida quarterback is a guy that they could look at there, but they really need to figure out this offense. You've got some weapons, receivers and running back wise, but somebody needs to get them the ball. You need to be a top 20 offense in order to succeed in this league, and they haven't done it yet. Not much cap space is one potential problem for a coach looking to take this job, and I think this might be the worst job potentially out there. Them or Arizona would be my two guesses. No quarterback, not much cap space, but hey, if you get to 9-8, you're probably making the playoffs. So you get that going for you if you land in Carolina. Were similar to Houston. They looked at a variety of guys. Obviously, looked at their interim. They looked at Jim Caldwell. They looked at Frank Reich, and then a couple of their OCs they have requested. As we said, Frank Reich, after a couple of years in Indianapolis, Jim Irsay parted with him this year. Went to should be Jeff Saturday there. Did not correct that. Jeff Saturday finished the season 1-7. Not Steve Wilks. Obviously, Steve Wilks went 6-6. And similar to me to Carolina, just with the quarterback situation, just a little different. You had Matt Ryan this year, Carson Wentz, Phillip Rivers, Jacoby Brissett, and then Andrew Luck. Looking forward, you just don't have a solution. You've had some good offenses the last couple of years before it really fell apart this year, and that's where I get concerned. You go back last year, 9th in points on offense, 9th in points on defense, and then you just fall apart this year to 30th and 28th. They do have some cap space, but they've spent a lot of cap space on that offensive line, on the middle linebacker Leonard, who missed most of this year. You got a lot of guys signed. Is there the pieces for Chris Ballard to make right and give the coach the best opportunity to win? You are in the AFC South, playing against Houston, not the best team. Jacksonville's obviously on the up and up with Trevor Lawrence. You don't like that, but Tennessee probably sliding in the wrong direction. So I think it's a good division to be in. So they finished second or third the last couple of years is better. And then to me, the outlier is Jim Irsay. Kind of similar to Houston, but just a little bit more volatile. Do you trust him? I think he's getting a little older. I think you could see him be a little trigger happy moving forward. Frank Reich stayed on for 5 years, but will the next guy get the benefit of the doubt? We'll see. The one thing to me, 4th overall pick, much better than Carolina at 9. Opportunity to take a top tier talent there, something they haven't been able to do recently. Could make this a really special job in Indianapolis. They looked at a couple guys. They looked at their special teams coach. They looked at Jeff Saturday, and then Eric Bieniemy. I think they'd go offense personally. Just I think Jim Irsay wants to get that quarterback situation solved, and that's why I think he'll want to give whoever the quarterback is the best chance to succeed. So I'd say offensive coordinator, but we'll see. Last but certainly not least, the Arizona Cardinals. Cliff Kingsbury, a quote-unquote offensive genius, departed ways after a couple of years in the desert. Offense was 21st, defense was 31st. Kyler Murray will be coming off an ACL, so we'll see when he gets on the field next season. Guaranteed basically for the next 2 years, $30 million after the 2024 season he could get off. And the interesting thing to hear compared to the other ones, no GM in place as he resigned for health reasons. So I'd say they picked the GM first, which would give them kind of second fiddle. I think you could see a couple of guys get hired the next couple of weeks. First, Arizona could be a little bit before they get there. $16 million in cap space and the third overall pick to work with. Similar to Indianapolis, you're going to be able to get a true blue chipper. From that, someone that if you can build right will be able to make a difference. To me, a couple good weapons with Kyler Murray, the running backs, receivers, but they've built from the outside in. I would think the next guy's going to build from the inside out and really try and be a hard-nosed football team, especially in a tough division. You think the Rams bounce back next year? Seattle obviously did well with the first year without Russell Wilson, and then San Francisco. Good luck playing them twice a year. So far, early in the process, as I said, no GM, so not much there for the Cardinals. So that wraps up where we are today. The 5 coaches have been fired. No one currently hired at this point. We'll see how it shapes up throughout the playoffs. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and check out our next video.